should put a caveat on this. I think we have to be really careful with, everybody's asking, what can I do? But I think in a way that's victim blaming in some senses. I think we have to be incredibly careful. There are things that individuals can do, but should they have to? Because this, again, if we go back to the sexual assault analogy, it's like saying, oh, you wore a short skirt, you were walking down that street at midnight, it's your fault. So I think it's good to be aware that there are some things we can do, but I also think we need a whole of society approach to this, which I can talk about in a minute. But so in terms of like, if you're in the middle of a cyber hate event right now, they want you to be upset. They look for your weakest point. They want you to be sad and angry and wound up. So the important thing in terms of responding or not responding is not to show that. So there's two things that work that I've discovered. One is actually silence, which I'm not great at because I'm a talker, but they don't want that because they've got no feedback. It's all about the feedback loop for them. So I don't say be silenced. I say be silent to the trolls. So you keep doing what you're doing. You keep talking to your community, but you don't respond to the trolls. That's one approach because it actually really pisses them off because they're trying, to get you and there's no evidence that they've succeeded. That's one thing. The other thing is what I call the Susan Carland approach. So this is Waleed Ali's wife, and she gets the most insane amount of trolling. She gives $1 to UNICEF every time she's trolled. And last time I interviewed her a few months ago, she was up to 5,200 something. So she gets trolled a lot. So her approach, she's quite often silent as well, but she just sends really stupid GIFs and often GIFs from Mean Girls. And they're funny. And so they say things like, why are you so obsessed with me? It's Regina George saying these silly things. And so that is actually the same approach in a way because it doesn't give the trolls what they want. What it's saying to them is, I don't really care that you're trolling me. It hasn't affected me. I'm not upset. I'm not afraid. Mm-hmm. So I don't think any of those are ideal responses. But if, the reality is we are all getting trolled. Mm. What I would say is we need a much bigger response than that. Mm. Yeah. We need lots of facets of society to act on this.
Yes, and that's where it needs to. The more information, the more that people talk about it too, the more it'll be taken seriously.
So Nigel Fair, who is also a former federal cop and he is now head of the Internet Safety Centre at UC, when I interviewed him recently, he said, we need to think about this the way that we have dealt with trauma on the roads. It has to be a whole of society approach. So we've made the roads better, we've designed the cars better, we've educated people better, we've put more cops on the roads to stop you speeding, and we've put laws into place that really make this strong. And so trauma on the roads has gone down. And so this is what we need to do with cyber hate.
Yes.
We need to have better legislation, train the police. There's a few good police around the country working on this, but overwhelmingly people tell me they don't understand it, that, it's a very poor response. Social media companies have a lot to answer for. They've created these town squares that are incredibly dangerous, and they seem to have no impetus or their reaction is so pale, and they are huge corporations with huge amount of power. We're not requiring them to keep us safe. Why not? Why aren't there billions of dollars of consequences for them if somebody dies from being bullied on their sites?
Yes, absolutely.
I also interviewed a British academic recently. She's an AI expert from Northumberland, and she, in the UK, she said, listen, the AI technology exists. Facebook could stop this if they wanted to, but they're not. Why?
Yes, exactly.
It costs them money. So Facebook, Twitter, their responses are so pale. We need community education. It goes on and on and on, really. But I feel very worried about making the impetus on the individual, because I think the societal structures to keep us safe have to be there. We see the online space as virtual and somehow unconnected to our offline lives, whereas really there's nothing virtual about it. Like, I'm talking to you right now. I can see your face right now. We're making a connection right now. This is a part of my offline life as much as my online life. If I order shopping at Woolworths, it arrives on my doorstep. It's not offline. So there is no disconnect between being bullied online and offline. And in fact, increasingly, trolling doesn't stay online. I can list 1,000 ways in which it starts online and it turns into real life. One of the people I'm in contact with, her troll has systematically wrecked her life and is now needlessly dragging her through the courts and has concocted all these criminal charges against her, which are totally fictitious. You know, she's thousands of dollars in debt trying to defend herself, which she doesn't have. So that is not online. It started online, but you know, and I've received texts from this woman in the middle of the night saying, I can't cope anymore. She's a person that has very substantial mental health, you know, issues as well. So I just think we need to stop, you know, walking around with our head in the clouds about it. To me, it's an emergency, you know.
Someone who trains journalists at the Herald and Weekly Times told me that they encourage their female journalists to just go under a pseudonym, to not actually post anything under their own names anymore.
And I mean, you have to think about what impact that has on democracy then. You know, what impact does that have on our society? And I mean, a journalist's job is to, you know, keep the bastards honest, you know, talk truth to power. So really, if we're unable to do that because of cyber hate, I mean, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's shutting people down.
And the internet, I mean, the internet has this incredible potential for humanity. Are we really going to risk that because we're not willing to get cyber hate under control? Like the kind of knowledge sharing and the, you know, I mean, I live my life online. The powerful case studies I find talk about domestic violence and self-harm and suicide, you know, the stuff I'm reporting on, I need to find those vulnerable people online. I need them to talk to me, you know, so, and this is frankly a threat to that.
Absolutely. So is there any last thing you'd like to add, Ginger, about the topic?
I think we just need to have a much broader mind about this and keep our eyes and ears open, do the research, collect the data, and then have a whole of community approach to fix this. Because cyber violence is like any other violence, and the harm that it does is real.